All right. Got 50 people in here. There's a bunch of them joining right now.
Excellent.
Hey, everybody. We're going to give everybody just a couple minutes to get in here and get settled, and then we'll kick it off. All right, it's 1. We still got quite a few people joining. We'll give it another, what do you think, a minute or two, and then we'll get it going? Okay.
Yep.
It's kind of fun watching the counter go up every time somebody joins. I could sit. I'm easily amused. Everybody, I could just sit here and watch everybody join all day long.
Seriously,
you're like a barking seal, Rob. You just
That's
clap
all.
again.
It doesn't take much for me. Throw a little sardine up in the air, and I'm all over it.
Oh man. Let's go, says Harvey. Love it.
11 o'clock tea time.
Let's go. I got a hurricane to get hit by. That's basically what I
in Florida right now, right?
Yeah.
So I've got my mom texting me in another window she's in Tampa. Same thing as you. They're in Orlando. Yeah. They're waiting.
Yeah, Yep.
Well, Patrick, shoveling snow already. That's no
only
bueno.
6 inches, Patrick. That's not even worth shoveling. Let it accumulate. Wait until there's about 14 or 15, and then.
All right, let's get the show on the road.
Let's go. All right, so this is episode 1 of the Golf Tech Gurus, and we chose that name because we didn't really like any of the others, and we don't like that one either. My name's Scott Merchant. I'm the Chief Growth Officer for Club Profit. With me,
Chief Guru.
Chief Guru, I guess.
Chief Guru Officer.
Yeah. So on the first panel there is Rob Hoffman, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Gallus Golf. In the second panel there, Ken Ashby, Director of One-to-One Marketing, Ignite Marketing Services, runs their digital marketing arm, and Guru. There is one guru on this call, and that's Kent. I'm definitely not guru. Rob's kind of half guru, but I think Kent's definitely the full guru. But this is going to be a 6-episode series for us of kind of what has come to be over the last 6 months, 7 months here of 2020, and what are we going to project forward here as it relates to golf technology for 2021. And there's some compelling arguments here as to what really just happened, and we're going to get into that, and what does that pretend for the 2021 season. How long is this going to last? So we're going to try to keep each of these to 30 minutes. We're going to talk fast, we're going to move fast, we're going to try to give you guys some specific takeaways that you have every episode, and we're going to cap it at 6 episodes every other week, and we'll just keep kind of emailing and press releasing that out. And if you can't join, great. We'll have a recording of it available to you or to any of your staffs or anybody that you know. They can just register and watch the recording as well, or you can just wait till the end and binge watch it. And this is kind of the first binge watch series for the golf industry. Before we get started, we all three of our companies wanted to thank all of the veterans out there, as this is recording on Veterans Day. So we want to thank all the veterans out there in the golf industry and those watching for their service. And the last housekeeping item here before I turn it over is the chat screen over here to the right. Feel free to ask questions, post your master's picks, refute statistics that come across. But we'll try to keep the main presentation to 30-35 minutes. We'll stay as long as people want to answer questions. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Ken Ashby from 1-to-1.
Awesome. There's Rob. So hey guys, I'm gonna talk. Thanks for joining us, and like Scott said, I'm gonna have to move quick to get through this. But what I'm gonna talk about specifically is search demand as it relates to demand for golf as it relates to search volume. So each of the next slides that I'm about to show you were actually pulled from something called Google Trends, which is it basically shows you the amount of searches for certain keywords on Google over time. And so as you can see in this first slide here, the search term in the top left is golf courses. And that's one of the most popular terms that people search for when they want to find a golf course. Who would have thought? And so as you can see, since 2004, which is on the left, and that's kind of the beginning of time in the eyes of Google. And then if you look at all the way on the right, that's current. And so you can see there's been a little bit of a decline every year until about 2014, where things flatten out. And then we get to 2020, where we see a nice bump. And you can actually see how peaked every other year is. It goes up, kind of peaks in June or July, and then goes right back down. Well, this year, due to COVID, the demand had a nice bump in March and stayed as a plateau, which in the next slide, I have a better screenshot for you guys. So here's what that looks like zoomed in on the right-hand side. So you have 2019 compared to 2020, and you can see the delta from peak to peak doesn't seem to be that large, but it's that plateau is really where the big difference is. It's every month has been significantly higher in demand than the peak of 2019. So even your shoulder season, and that's what I'm going to show you here on this slide, which is you look at January, which is pre-COVID, search volume for golf was up 10% year over year. February, 5.5%. March, now this is COVID hitting. All of a sudden, it bumps up to 72% increases in search volume year over year. April, 98%. And then we get to the meat of the golf season, May, June, and July, where it doesn't help demand increase quite as much, but it's still a massive increase year over year, which makes sense. There's only so many golfers, so much demand. But then we get back into the shoulder season again, August, September, and even October. And that delta or that difference is then back to where it was. It's 83% increase year over year in September. And so really what this is telling me is it's kind of disproportionately helping those off-season months stay busy. I mean, stay pretty much just as busy as May, June, and July, which for a lot of people is difficult to believe or understand. Obviously, this is all weather permitting, and parts of the country can be slightly different. And so another thing I want to touch on is the increased popularity in the near me searches. And what I mean by that, there we go. So what I mean by that is people are changing the way they use search engines. They're using voice search. They talk into their phone and say, find me a golf course, or golf courses nearby, or I just landed off a plane. Hey, where's a golf course near the airport? People are using that type of technology in that way to search more and more. And COVID has really put the foot on the gas for that as well. And you can see here in 2020, these near me searches have just spiked again, and they've been picking up popularity. But really, since COVID, that's picked up even more so. And here, to give you a juxtaposition to see the magnitude of those searches, let me hide myself again here. I'm comparing the keyword golf courses near me, which is the blue line, to the search term golf now, which is the red line. And you can see golf now, it peaked in around, the searches for golf now peaked in around 2015, and actually have started to come down since then. And then actually, once you get to if you look at the blue line, there's kind of a paradigm shift sometime in around 2017 or 2018. And you can actually look at the blue line and the red line at their peaks and see that they're the same or very similar. And so what that tells me is the magnitude for these searches is huge. There's tons of people searching for golf courses near me. And that's just that one keyword specifically, golf courses near me. There's, many different iterations of that. So just the magnitude is huge. And I'm trying to paint that picture for you guys.
Yeah, and I think Kent too. Make sure you just go as a comparative of golf now is just showing as a consumer brand of golf versus just the generic golf near me. It's not we're not drawing any conclusions, up or down on golf now. It's just as a comparative lineup against the base of what you're looking for.
That's right. Obviously, Golf Now is a massive brand, has tons of followers, has lots of people searching for it. So that's just to help. And you can see 2019 again is the red line. Or the first hump is 2019, second hump is 2020 in this chart, and you can see that there's really no difference or not much difference in search volume for Golf Now, but quite a big increase for golf courses near me. So that's really all I'm trying to illustrate there is the increases there. Now, for a lot of you, I want to touch on this because I know a lot of you and a lot of my clients own and operate venues, wedding venues as part of their business. And this is a big piece of a lot of golf facilities business. So I want to touch on this. Wedding venues were hurt, obviously, a ton with COVID. A lot of places didn't even know if you could have weddings, gatherings more than 20 people, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of brides just said, I want to get married, but I don't want to get married right now. And so all that demand kind of got pushed back. Like all these people that didn't book a venue, didn't because of COVID, they just didn't want to they weren't sure of what was going to happen. I think there's some pent up demand, and the demand was really quick to rebound once local governments and states and municipalities figured out what the rules were. You know what I mean? Once the rules were stable, the demand for weddings started to pick back up. It's not completely back to where it was, but it has restored, let's call it 90% of where it was. Now, these people, you got to think they're making reservations for a wedding 6, 12, 18 months from now. So it's not like the wedding is actually going to take place right this second. We're not special, guys. I mean, a little bit, but outdoor recreation of all kinds has really taken off. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. So to give you a good idea, here's the keyword boats for sale. 2020, if you look on the far right, massive jump year compared to the rest of the years. Bikes for sale. This industry, if you've gone into a sporting goods store or a bike shop anytime in the last 6 months, they're sold out everywhere. These people are printing money. And again, I think there's some similarities between us and them. RVs for sale, another one, huge spike in sales and search volume for those. So why is that? I think it's a couple things. I think people have more time to enjoy these things, and I think golf is similar to that. And I think they also have more money to spend on these things because they're displacing a $5, $10, $15, $20,000 vacation or travel expenses that they're not incurring now. And so the takeaways that I wanted to give you guys is really raise your rates where it makes sense because it's justified. If you're slammed on your Saturday, your occupancy is through the roof. I've had several clients of mine raise their rates successfully. Did they tick a few people off? You betcha they did. But did it work out for them in the long run? It did. And it's a lot easier to go back down. So say the things correct, COVID's gone and things go back to where they were. People aren't going to say, oh, you're discounting now. Like you can always go backwards is what I'm getting at. And also as a result of being more golf demand, there's more people considering membership because they're playing more golf and spending more time in the golf course. So promote it to them. Offer more programming when you can. People just need an excuse to play more golf. A lot of times they just don't want to book a tee time and go play around. They want to be a part of something. Make it easy for them to be a part of something at your club, whether it's a tournament or wine and nine or whatever. And then obviously we just sat here and talked about search demand for the past 10 minutes. Leverage that demand when you can. I mean, let it be your number one sales guy, run Google ads, pay attention to your search engine optimization and where you rank amongst the competition, because that will be a big contributing factor in 2021. Just seeing what we're seeing. And now I'm going to hand it off to Rob, who's going to talk about some of the technology and some of the things he's seeing on his end.
Cool. Thanks, Ken. Let me load these up. So I'm going to kind of echo a little bit of what Kent said, but discuss it in terms of actual engagement at golf courses that we work with. So we're working with hundreds of golf courses across the world. Most of ours are in North America, like most of the people that are here in this webinar that we're talking to today. We have seen just records shattered with the level of engagement that has gone on with the app this year. One of the most important things about it is it's all happening on a piece of technology that all of our companies and all of your customers can affect. Their smartphones. Every single customer has one. Every single one of our companies is working through smartphones to be able to engage your clients, whether it's through a branded app from us or whether it's through websites from One-to-One or booking engines from Club Profit direct through your website, wherever it may be. We're able to connect with them this way, and it's working. So let me share some of these numbers that we've seen this year so far. I've just got comparisons from May through August in golfer engagement and year over year. So rounds of golf, this is through apps of ours, rounds of golf recorded in the app. So people that actually just started using the app for a round of golf, didn't even necessarily complete keeping all 18 holes or whatever it may have been, but they just started in 2019, May 1 through August 31st, 123,000 rounds. The same date range in 2020, 366,692 rounds. So basically a 3x increase. Engagement's way up. Participants, we have this thing that we do called the monthly tournament series with Gallus. A lot of you that may have our app may not even be aware of it, but it allows, and we're going to talk about it in future episodes to kind of dig in, but every golfer that keeps score in the app is automatically entered into this monthly tournament series. It's a virtual tournament. It runs month long. It's always either a best ball or a modified Stableford tournament, allowing golfers to improve their scores, either more points in the modified Stableford or better best balls in the I really sound like a guru using English like that, but a better score in their best ball scorecard as the month goes along. But just to give you a little bit of a snapshot of the increase there, it's basically the same number. It's about a 3x number. 2019 in the same date range, 23,000 golfers. 2020 this year, same date range, 62,500 golfers participated in that. Scores posted to GIN accounts, same date range, 2019, 8,789, 2020, 15,447. I think that number is huge telling factor because one, it's showing how many more golfers are just engaged in that, but it's also in a metric that we all know. I don't even know what the metric is at your courses, but I would say probably less than half of the golfers coming out to play golf are actually posting their rounds on a regular basis, or maybe even have a GIN account to be able to post too. So the fact that that posting has gone up has been huge for us. In the engagement within our virtual caddy, this graph shows calls to the GPS for portion of the technology. So these are the number of people that are actually viewing sections of the GPS on holes. The top part shows the increase in the lighter blue versus the darker blue in the bottom, the increase of 2020 over 2019. And we can see how it falls off in October. We pulled this metric on October 3rd, so we don't really have October numbers. But as you can see, again, mirroring Kent's numbers, they're searching for it, yes, but not only are they searching for it, they're engaging. They're out on the golf course, they're playing, they're using these numbers, they're finding distances for their shots. Right here, when quarantine started to release and people started to be allowed to get out to golf courses and play again, we didn't just have our normal increase year over year, it spiked. And you can see the spike in the year over year increases there. So we're excited about where this is going. As these numbers continue to increase, one thing that I do want to mention is this has been all on the customers. And this is where it's going to get really important for subsequent episodes when we start to talk to you about engaging them. The reason I say this is all on the customers and on the golfers engaging, we have not seen, the one place we've not seen an increase is from you, from the golf courses. We've not seen a significant increase in the way you've communicated out to your customers. And that's one thing that we're going to touch on really heavily in coming episodes of this webinar series is now that you've got these golfers, how do we make them loyal? But to touch on these numbers, that same period, May 1st through August 31st, all of our apps collectively in 2019 sent 5,415 push notifications. In 2020, 5,790 push notifications. So not a significant increase in communications from the course. Golfers are finding their way to you. And this is where I know Scott's going to touch on it as we wrap up this, but in this series, one of the things that at least I really want to discuss are ways that you can really retain these customers now that they've made their way into your database, they've made their way into your customer base, they are now customers of yours. We're going to start to discuss retaining them, making them loyal, getting the lion's share of their golf dollar within your market. So if they're in your market and they're going to spend X per month on golf, let's make sure you get 90% of X at your golf course, that most of the money's coming to your course in some way. So that's one of the things that as we kind of get past this episode and let it sink in, WTF just happened in 2020 in the golf industry, we're going to be able to transition into how do you make what just happened work for you in 2021 and beyond. So Scott, I'll let you kind of grab the slides here and go over from there.
Yeah, and there was a question for you there in the chat too,
Andre. What's to isolate the increase in rounds played from an increase in tech engagement among golfers? So to isolate, let me kind of digest this question a little bit. To isolate the increase in rounds played from an increase in tech engagement, there really is no isolation. I mean, what we see is we're in enough courses right now, and enough of your golfers are using the apps that we have and engaging with our technology. What we've seen over the years is we are pretty much proportional to rounds played. So there's no isolation or separation. As rounds go up, we've seen tech engagement go up. Now, the key thing about it is what I just kind of mentioned in coming things is how do you leverage this? Now that you've got them engaged and they're engaged in this technology and they're engaged in these ways, how do you leverage it and go? I'm not certain I 100% answered your question there, Andre, but I don't really feel like there's any isolation or separation in this. I feel like as one goes up, the other continues to go up.
Yeah, there's a correlation, if anything.
Yeah, one quick mention here too. I don't have this in a slide, and then I'll get to you, Scott. When it comes to demographics, a lot of you will be surprised. We very much line up with what the NGF and others, myself included, have referred to as the golf demographic. Use of our mobile apps, about 2/3 of our users fall within a 55 and older demographic. A little bit over 90% of our users are 35 years old and older. So there's really no isolation there either in rounds played. Everybody's engaging with the technology pretty much regardless of demographic.
And we'll hit on a little bit of that too in a future episode when we talk about the new golfer funnel. You know, that the NGF is kind of trying to line things up for us in terms of who's responsible for all these increase in rounds. Is it the committeds that are playing 50 and more? Is it the new you know, male or female golfer that's coming in? Is it junior golfers? So we're going to try to dig into that a little bit more specifically, and then how they are engaging in the tech. So things that I'm going to talk about here is just from the software provider's perspective, from your core system. It's not specific to Club Profit. The things we're going to show, I'm sure, are consistent across.
Let's not just glaze past your Photoshop job there.
Oh, the Photoshop job. Yeah, we'll get to that Photoshop in a little bit.
He's also a Photoshop guru, in case you guys were wondering.
I am a Photoshop guru. There's no doubt about that one. So,
and I know Tom's on here, so if it doesn't work out for you at Club Profit, we can bring him in and have him do some graphic design for us for some, you know, a little bit of whatever from time to time.
The graphic design team at 1-to-1. So the key points that I'll mention from the software company, and then we'll talk about these as takeaways, is there was a massive POS system surge. There was an influx, and we'll go into that a little bit. And Harvey Silverman, who's here, he wrote on that a little bit in his articles in Lucid. There was also a surge in terms of what our golf course clients were using more of. Not only was there just more volume in there, but it was deeper too in terms of what people were actually going into. And then we have some aggregate data too in terms of the credit cards, and what I'm calling specifically the death of cash. Not specific to the golf industry, it's across all industries, but you'll start to see those numbers, and I'm sure they line up with what you're probably seeing at your facility. So the T-sheet and POS system surge. So what we saw at Club Profit, March and April, in a tsunami, what happens is the earthquake comes and the tide moves out. And so people get kind of lured into thinking, oh my gosh, you know, this COVID tide has gone out. Our phone call traffic has dropped. Will golf ever return? And I'm sure some of you are asking those same questions. So the tide went out, to about 13%, as it relates to March and April, and then it came back. The tide came back in with a crash in May and June. So the call volume was up 40%, and in June that was the absolute peak at up 53%. So when you're talking about tens of thousands, 50,000 calls or activities, to have another 50% added onto that is a real shock. And I believe it was the case across. I know one-to-one in Gallus, and I'm sure some of the competitors to Club Profit as well. It's leveled off here, I would say, in August and September, at up almost 20%. So the leveling off is still pretty intense. But we're going to make it through. But then that surge in tickets too was what I call was more people, more problems. So that March and April down 15%, but then May and June up over 60% or close to 60%. So not only do we have more calls, we had more people. Like one call was actually 3 tickets. Hey, can you fix this? And we need to add this, and we need to do this. And all of that was because every state was different in terms of how they handled their COVID mitigation. Twosome, single rider carts, not allowed in the golf shop, must order food and beverage, from outside. So just all of these things that were going on, and then the rules would change again, in June, and then the rules would change again in July. So operators were having to kind of, work this problem on the fly and then work it back with their software provider. A lot of times too, that just generated longer callback times, and I would call it longer callback times with shorter fuses. That if we're opening tomorrow and we just got the all clear, and all of a sudden every golf course in the state and every neighboring state also has those same rules, it just created this huge influx. And the bottom line of that is it creates this huge reliance or an increased reliance on your software provider. So I'm sure even if you're not a Club Profit customer or a one-to-one customer, you probably found yourself calling your software provider or your website provider more than you have in the years past. So the second surge was kind of what I would call the modules use. So the existing customers, adding on different upgrades or modules or things that they hadn't used before. So April through September, just at Club Profit, we were up 97% over 2019. As much as I would like to think that that's because we're great salespeople and our product's unbelievable, which they are, a lot of that is just COVID was creating this massive influx of what you needed the software to do. Specifically, if we drill down into just our mobile-based solutions or iPad modules or mobile credit card, that was up almost 250% over the previous year. So, I mean, just those rules created for you, put a huge burden, in late April and May to do that. The online reservation module, I phrase this as the holdouts finally relent. Even if you were a private club or a semi-private that just didn't want to do online reservations, your customers weren't ready for it. Well, now you're ordered to do it by decree of the governor. So sometimes this was a caveat to opening, and even if you didn't want to do it and you don't understand online reservations, you were forced into it. So normally when people buy software now, the online reservations is just part of it. But for those last holdouts, I'm sure there's maybe a couple of golf courses that still aren't doing it, but I would think it's very few and far between now. And kind of that extension of those modules, what we saw was the mobile solutions and the iPad solutions was used in more locations. If it was just used on the beverage cart, now you'd probably have to use it in the golf shop or maybe in the food and beverage, or maybe you were doing this all outside. The mobile solution for 60, 90 days became the main solution. So people were setting up tables outside or stuff on the first tee. Your mobile solution, your mobile credit card solution, all of a sudden might become the central ring-in device. We saw a huge uptick in offsite access, people needing to access their data, from the cloud and moving up everything over to Amazon. And again, that's just natural. If you can't be in your building, if people are working from home, if your event planners are, on furlough, you needed to access all that information. And for certain, your tech got beat up hard. Software, hardware, new features, new functions that you hadn't used before. Not only are you using it, but like day one, it's getting put to the test. So that creates stress on what people think is a working piece of software. Oh yeah, well, let's try that when 100,000 golfers are coming through it simultaneously. So credit card swipes, hardware being dropped, all of those things just created, just more activity as it relates to your software provider. And we saw people using reservations specifically for things that they never thought they would use it for pools, for dining rooms, fitness center, tennis simulators. That demand curve created that, and sometimes the rules of COVID opening required it. And we also saw a lot of new technology starting to come into the game and starting to get more of a foothold, what I would call outside modules, or things that are maybe outside the scope of a normal T-sheet and point of sale and food and beverage operation, where, you know, food ordering, being able to access, you know, a menu and do to-go orders, or beverage cart airstrikes, you know, being able to on demand and have the beverage cart respond to that. We've seen a few of those companies start to come up. Same for caddy management. You know, if you're not able to, you know, have an ATM inside or withdrawing cash, being able to manage that caddy patron relationship, how they're getting paid, how you're paying out the caddies. Because again, we saw a lot of the death of cash. So to tie it into the death of cash, I threw a few charts here, which was, here's our 2019, right? So our 2019, you know, we're talking about tens of millions, you know, 20s of millions of dollars here on each of these bars. It kind of just follows your normal demand curve of golf. Goes up, comes down, you know, not really a big deal. And then for us, we then layer that in with what our projections were. Okay, here's 2020. It's going to go up a little bit. You know, we've got a little bit more facilities. We've got a little bit more activity. You know, people are gravitating towards credit cards a little bit more anyway. So we put sort of a scientific projection together, you know, at Club Profit and come up with our credit card numbers. When you layer in the actual processing numbers, it actually goes through the chart. Okay, it actually goes above and beyond even a normal demand curve, you know, uptick. So you see there in March and April, kind of on the left, you see that normal. Hey, you know, we were shut down because of COVID, so we weren't processing. So, but we're not going up by a factor of how busier we've been. We're actually going up by a factor of how busy we've been and the customer has changed. So if I start to put some of those into the numbers, where what we saw an overall volume peak of 45% increase on those spike months. If golf overall is 15, 20, 25% up, that means we have double that is equated to the changing consumer, right? Is that they are no longer paying with cash. You wouldn't subject yourself to that. You don't want your staff to hand it, and then all of a sudden they're taking a dirty $20 bill and handing it back to the customer. It's just changed. What's interesting too, and I'll be interested to see our October numbers, but the volume kind of had meddled out there around, you know, a 45% increase. All of a sudden in September we were up 61%. So it's possible that people are even gravitating more towards you know, prepay or credit card pay or Apple Pay more as they get more familiar with it. I don't know, but this is a big number that we're watching globally, and I'm going to give you guys some takeaways here. The number of transactions per mid or per terminal or per device, those are going up again about the same, but a little bit more. So you're doing more transactions per terminal. So you might have never had a credit card on the beverage cart before, but now you are. So we're just seeing an overall, you know, huge influx in terms of credit card activity. At Club Profit, personally, we see our PAX device sales, which are the newer credit card units that can accept Apple Pay, Google Pay, you know, the tap to pay mobile wallet. The sales of those units were up 75% compared to the previous year. Globally, what we've seen since March of 2020, and this is not a golf industry thing, this is just a Visa MasterCard thing, that Apple Pay and Google Pay is up 59% since March. And that technology had flatlined. You know, it was just some people were using Apple Pay or Google Pay. It was kind of this thing, and all of a sudden it just went way up. So golf will eventually get that, you know, because our golfers are typically older and typically lagging behind the technology curve. But just to get you a feel for what's coming, you know, there's a huge shift. Almost double the amount of consumers there are now exclusively using mobile wallet than when before the pandemic started. So, you know, not having those sort of things will be a challenge. You'll want to answer that challenge by being able to have mobile payment. So the last slide here for me is just, you know, some takeaways. There is, when you think about the core software and what's happened in your core software, I think it's important for the individual users in the golf courses to take that as their own challenge to improve their software knowledge. You need to create a key person at the facility that you can lean on for your first round of technical support. Somebody that's just a guru, your own personal guru in the software. and what they had learned and the way the software had been used previously, they're going to need to stretch themselves, here for 2021. So that to me involves all of the things that your software company can give you in terms of educational videos and tutorials, the manuals or online manuals that are there, release notes. I know that every single software company is working overtime to try to get new features for the variety of things that need to be there for online lessons or single rider carts or whatever the features are. Be careful and not be careful, but just be vigilant that you're staying on top of those notes to see if they've been able to help your customers with that. So think about that holistically as it relates to your facility, that if there is going to be another surge and you're relying on your software more, maybe that next hire is somebody that you can make this as part of their projects. The add-on software modules, now that you have a chance to breathe, I think finally some winter weather, some fall weather had come in. Take a couple days off, have a sip of your favorite beverage, but then think about what you're going to do immediately for 2021. What new modules do you need? What methodologies? If COVID spikes back and all of a sudden we're right back to where we were when we first opened in April, May, what could you do better, and get those things rolling out now in December, January, February, so you're not waiting until April 1 and April 2nd is opening day. It just doesn't work.
It would be great to say it's not going to happen too, Scott, but I mean, I know, just speaking for home state California, right here, everything's shut down again starting on Saturday. Retail stores are closed, restaurants are outdoor dining only, nothing allowed inside anymore. I mean, the shutdown has started again due to some spikes, and the governor's saying this is what it is. There are a couple questions for you here too when you're ready.
Okay. Well, let me breathe here first. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Brian coming in hot from up there north of the border. This is, I think, probably more for you, Scott, on your end, because you're seeing more credit card charges from the end of it. Are facilities charging something additional, a surcharge to pay by credit card to cover fees?
Yeah, and kind of one of those things I put on there was for the credit cards was prepare for the death of cash, right? Test the technology as it relates to it and raise your prices. So there's two ways to kind of go about raising the prices. If all of a sudden all of your volume is now, let's call it American Express corporate cards, right? And it's 3.5% that you're getting dinged by your credit card provider. You need to say, wait, hold on, I'm not charging enough because my margin just went down by 2%. Okay. So you need to think about raising your prices. The thing that Brian mentioned there specifically is surcharging. About a year and a half ago, we had an internal discussion at Club Profit about surcharging and the surcharging technology that you see in other industries. We say, will that come to golf? And we're like, man, it's going to be tough. If for a $50 green fee, essentially, you say, hey, it's going to be $50 if you pay with cash, and it's $52 if you're going to pay with a credit card. And then there's rules to that. You have to have it on the receipt. You have to have signage at the point of sale. You have to exclude people that are debit. All of those rules are starting to break now, or become more lenient, so allow small business owners to do surcharging. It's still a state-by-state discussion, but now it's like, I think New York and California flipped, and it's like 43 of 50 states that are allowing surcharging. So it is something that is coming. I know at Club Profit, we plan on having it very, very soon. I'm not going to say the end of the year because I don't want to put us under that gun, but having it by the end of the year so that you could say to people, or to yourselves, hey, we're going to surcharge our golfers that use credit cards. How will they react to that? I don't know. I've seen other industries do it. It has happened. It's happened, in the restaurant industry a little bit. It's starting to happen there. So if golf courses want this will come about. How the golfers react, it'll probably be kind of what Kent said at the beginning. When you start to raise your rates, some of them complain.
Yeah.
But if everybody's paying with an American Express corporate miles card, right, you as a business owner are negatively bearing the burden so that guy goes on his Hawaiian vacation, and there are technologies that are going to be there along with it to say, hey, maybe the $50 green fee I don't surcharge, but the $200 green fee where the guy's paying for all four, maybe that I surcharge. So you'll be able to surcharge based off of volume. Definitely for your outings or weddings, if somebody's going to hand you their credit card because they're going to get 10,000 American Airlines points, or miles because of you, you really need to think about surcharging that. And those technologies will come for you. So, Club Profit will look to have that very soon. I would assume other people are heading that same direction, but it's a good question to ask.
I mean, I think something else to talk about in mitigating that, and some things that we're going to dig into in subsequent episodes, is building that level of loyalty to your course. Like I mentioned earlier, you've got all these new golfers right now. Let's talk about other ways to retain them. Ways through competition that we can put in through technology. Ways through identifying them as preferred customers through your technology. Different ways that you can identify them that's going to build your value with them, which is going to make it easier for you to raise your prices a little bit. You've got a loyal customer, they're a little bit more dedicated to you. A 5%, 10% bump in prices, to go from $50 to $55 in your greens fee, it will not be a big jump to these people once you've developed that loyal relationship. So within that context too, if there were, and Justin, we appreciate you commenting here. Justin Smith came in and said that they did institute surcharges and it went smoothly with no customer pushback. So that's great to hear. But I think that there are other ways to do it too. I think that there are pieces that you can put in place to simply raise your rates to maintain a margin that you're currently happy with, or even increase your margin a little bit based on driving a little bit more of a loyal, engaged behavior with your customers too.
And essentially, what surcharging does is it eliminates all the fees that you pay your credit card processor. So, there might be a headache. There might be a customer that complains, according to Justin, that there's none, if any, which is great. And I'm sure Justin has a nice little script, generated for his staff so they can just get it right out there. But it does make your credit card statement fees go to zero. So that's kind of an appealing, flip side of the coin. I would make sure too, the last two takeaways for the credit cards was make sure you expand those processing options, kind of skate to where the puck is going with your Apple and Google Pay with online, and then maintain PCI compliance. If you are processing more credit cards, if more people are handing credit cards, you're storing credit cards. I'm not going to get into PCI compliance because I don't want anybody to fall asleep. But it is something to think about, is if you are processing more and there's more cards, stored in your database, to make sure that you're aware of it. Was there any other?
There were a couple other things. I mean, I think Tom Robshaw addressed things with Gaylord a little bit. Gaylord's having a little bit of a PCI compliance issue specifically with his processor. So I think that that's more of a one-off issue that you guys are going to address offline with Gaylord and handle that. I love that you guys are having a little bit of conversation back and forth among courses in here too. I think that's great, and that's a lot of what we wanted to set out to do with these, was to start this discussion, because I personally believe that trade secrets should not be secret. The more we make a lot of the practices and things we're doing industry standards, the more that benefits all of your courses, because customers will come to demand it. And then when other courses in your market are not doing what customers demand, you're the one who's going to benefit from it, because you're the course that's going to be providing it.
Yeah, we have a great opportunity as individual courses and operators, but we also have a great opportunity as an industry to get new golfers, or encourage people to play more golf if they're already playing golf, and get people that don't play golf regularly to become regular golfers. And I think a lot of what I'm seeing, at least with my clients, is that rounds are way up, but people also just want to be a part of, like, the tournaments that we're promoting are even more successful. They're selling out in 24 hours, 48 hours. People want to be a part of something, not just go out and play a round of golf by themselves. But you can still do these events and be safe. And I've had a customer do a virtual version where the tournament was all day long. You could play your round anytime you wanted. So people weren't coming together and staying together in one spot. But the course was still basically, you could get away from people, you could get your social distance, but the tournament still went on, and people were thrilled about it. They were excited about it. So if you guys have anything you want to experiment with, or you always wanted to try, or anything like that's on the docket, whether it's different programming or offering something new, now is the time to experiment with those things. Yeah, that's right.
And also now's the time to raise your prices, or now's the time to put in a credit card surcharge.
That's right.
So this is the time. And as I said back in the spring, you definitely need the one thing I try to hammer home is raise your prices. Right. The only way to stop demand is to kind of raise the prices until your CapEx budget is full, until you have hired the correct staff, including a marketing person or back to the correct staffing levels until you yourself are getting paid as the owner of the facility. If you've deferred your salary or compensation, now's the kind of time to kind of ratchet the business back to where it should be in terms of your EBITDA. You know, cue the Jim Keegan commercials. You know, to make sure that your business is functioning the way it should. That for CapEx, this is the time to fill it back up. And we'll get into future episodes of specific tactics regarding the parts of the funnel. You know, and then I guess kind of to wrap it up here as to get into any questions. So Bill Johnson, I will find out the answer to your question about the Google Pay or Apple Pay. I don't believe there's an increase in the fees that are associated with that, but these guys were giving me a rash of SHIT for my cover picture. But since it is Masters Week, this is the return to glory, right? So kind of like Tiger, golf has had this long comeback story arc, and we've had to work back to get back to the top of the mountain. Like Tiger in this picture, we are sweaty, we are exhausted. For those in the Northeast and Midwest, we are relieved to see the slowdown. But it's also a chance to kind of enjoy what's happened, that we've gotten back, you know, to where maybe, you know, this business has struggled to get to, and it took a pandemic to get there, unfortunately. But the real challenge, and what we're going to try to answer here in the next 5, is how do we keep it going? You know, that is going to be the real challenge. Everybody's like, this is like a temporary thing. I think it's as temporary as we make it. We have a lot of tailwind with work from home. We have a lot of tailwind with kids' sports activities, with live sporting events, with some of these things where people use their discretionary dollars up against golf. So kind of the episodes here, as they start to take focus, is we're gonna do a deep dive into the changing customer in 2 weeks. We'll talk about the new golfer funnel. Specifically, like, you know, what are they expecting? How do we get all those different parts of the piece of the puzzle to increase their spend? We're going to look at the barter model. Is this the time, if we're talking about drastic changes, is it time for that discounted barter resale model to die or be reduced? Another episode will be, is it time for stagnant pricing to die? If you set your rates, one of my good friends in the business at a municipality sets their rates for 2020 and 2019, and if you set your rates pre-COVID and you didn't adjust your rates, you just lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunities. So is this the time now for stagnant pricing to finally, you know, kick the bucket? And we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll kind of recap everything with some real specific takeaways on how you're going to succeed and win in 2021. And you know, so we'll keep pushing these out every 2 weeks. Kent, do we have any other questions that we needed to answer there?
I don't think so. They said Brady had mentioned about learning what channels or what social channels are generating the most green fee revenue, and we'll definitely talk about all that. But Brady, we should definitely talk sometime. That's my forte.
That's the guru. You're talking to the guru right there.
Yeah.
So,
but thanks everybody for.
Well, one other thing quickly to mention here, and I think this is worth mentioning as a part of this, just because it came up in this discussion. I know, Tom, you just answered this for Stella, that she's mentioning that credit cards on file are being charged a little bit higher processing rate than original swipe credit cards. I want you to kind of consider this: repeat customers versus new customers. It always costs you more to acquire that new customer and get them in to swipe that card the first time than to retain them and be charging a card over and over again. So just one thing to kind of remember in that. I understand it's a little bit more of a fee, but keep in mind, a repeat customer is a lot easier to it's much cheaper to do business with a repeat customer than to acquire a new customer, get them in the door the first time and charge their card.
And by the way, we can go on a deep dive about credit cards, and maybe with the questions we will. If the credit card fees are going up, okay, you know, like Jim Copenhaver famously says, you know, I don't like bad news, but I hate surprises. Okay, so if you know that you cannot physically touch a credit card because your golf shop is closed and you have to do all the stuff that we had to do when we first opened, if that's the rules of the game, and those rules are going to be again, at least you know that, and you can price accordingly. Okay,
yeah, it's built in at that point.
It's right. Like learning this stuff after the fact, and like, oh man, I wish I knew that. I would have charged an extra $3 on my credit cards, or I would have gone to surcharging. Like, so we don't want to be surprised. We just want to make really educated decisions based off of the data, and we're going to keep pushing that data across, you know, what we see at Club Profit. You know, certainly Kent and One-to-One has access to a bunch, as does Rob, and we're going to keep kind of pushing that and helping try to draw conclusions. to help run the business better, so we're not surprised in 2021.
Yeah, and as a parting note, if any of you guys have, none of us three own or operate a golf course. So if you guys have tried something at your facility and it's worked, and you want to share it with us, that would be awesome. We would love to showcase it on here. I mean, because we only know our experiences. I'm sure plenty of you guys have experienced unique things all on your own. So anything you guys can share that you're willing to share, we'd love to be able to share it with the masses. So, all right, everybody.
Very
Thanks
good.
for the time.
Excited
Thanks, guys.
to see you soon.
See you guys. Take care. Yes, this will be available for replay afterwards, everybody. So we'll send it out.
Abby, that is a good idea too. I see you there. If you're still there and can hear me, a forum would be a good idea for us to continue at the end of this. I don't think it would be a bad thing for us to get on there and have some platform. I think, Kent, you know of a website company, we might be able to put something like that together, kind of a golf gurus forum. So I do like that idea for us to be able to communicate on an ongoing basis. I do think timing wise, it'll probably be something that comes after it's enough for these gurus to get all their act together to do all of this every 2 weeks. So I would look for that to come though early next year.
Early next year.
Let's do it.
That's all you're gonna do, Rob. It's early next year.
Early next year. Yeah.
Until then, we'll just give everybody Justin Smith's cell phone number, and they can just call him for the credit cards.
So, where's the Golf Gurus
Twitter page? Oh
Kevin,
man, no way.
We gotta pick a name concretely before we make Twitter.
Golf Gurus looks like it's sticking.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We need to bring like Ryan and Burgoon and Tom Rob show. We need to bring like the real gurus on here, so that the junior gurus can step aside.
Who will win the Masters? I think it's going to
boy.
be Sergio Garcia, right?
No.
Don't know who's going to win the Masters. It's kind of hard to bet against Rory or Bryson right now, I think.
Got DJ as a little, and maybe Xander. Throw a little taste on Xander.
bit of that,
Betting,
yeah.
getting some good odds.
Tom, I'm
Rose
glad
sitting
you're
there at
saying
50
that.
to 1.
I
Justin
kinda
Rose
wanna
at 50 to 1.
I want to see Rory win. I'd like to see McIlroy.
It's not
Yeah.
who you want us to win.
Complete
Who's going to win? The guru has to be.
I always get what I want.
Give the right answer. Sprinkle a little on Justin Rose. Sprinkle a little on Xander Schauffele. Could be a playoff between Rose and Schauffele. You heard it here first.
Very good.
All right, guys.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
There's 80 of you still watching us. You guys need to get back to work now.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
See ya.
Let's play some golf.
Let's go watch that.
I'm
All right,
out.
guys.
See you guys. I'm
See ya,
out of here.
everybody.
See you guys. Bye.